So this is the question: how does that ethical attitude or that selfless attitude express itself at the different levels of the human personality or of human interaction? Right, the emotional level is love. Not something that you'll often hear in a board meeting, not something you hear spoken about in the corporate world as such, partly because of the bad reputation that the word love has. Okay, so when we use this word love, we are not talking about a surface emotion. We're not talking about smiling faces and happy and how was your weekend and, you know, are your emotions okay and my emotions okay, liking everybody and so on and so forth. All these surface expressions. You may know someone, I know someone for example, who every time she meets, I think everybody, it's I love you, I love you, I love you, goodbye, I love you. What happens?
It becomes diluted.
Yeah, it becomes diluted, it loses all of its meaning. This is not genuine love, it's a surface emotion. So love is not this emotional fluctuation. Think of it more as an absence of separation. It's a recognition that even if it's someone, I don't like you, I don't agree with your position, I don't like to hang around with you, but there's something about us which is intrinsically common and intrinsically the same. And while I have that recognition, I have love. So it's not, again, it's not hugging, it's not all of these sort of surface expressions that we tend to associate with this idea of love. One of the ways we can understand it is aligned interests. When you recognize sameness in another person or between you and another person, what you're saying is that there are interests that we both share. You may or may not be able to serve those interests. Again, that's a separate issue. What love is to search for a common thread, to search for a common ground where we are experientially non-different. This is what we're saying. Absence causes indifference or lack of cooperation. And then this is what we were covering in one of the earlier sections. When there is the absence of this recognition, we are inherently separate, we're different, we're not the same. Your experience means very little to me. But when I know that you have the same experience I have, now there's an immediate sense of oneness. The other thing that happens when there's this lack of identification or lack of oneness is that cooperation is degraded. Why do I cooperate with you? Why do you cooperate with me?
Because we have a common objective.
Common objective. And even if we're not actually looking for the same material objective, yeah, you're running a project that's got nothing to do with me. If I cooperate with you on a project where it's nothing to do with any of my work, it's because I see your interests. I see that you have your own project, your own desires, your own needs, and so on and so forth, and you want to get those done. Well, what I'm describing is exactly my own experience. It's a different set of work, it's a different outcome, it's a different project, but that's where we are the same. And so when I recognize your need and your desire to be successful in your work, I recognize that I have the exact same desire. Now we're kin. When I see that, there's that connection, and I naturally want to promote or elevate your interests. What happens when I do that to you? It is reciprocal.
Glenn, if I had to define love to somebody right now, I couldn't do it. Can someone else try different words? Because right now I'm lost.
Okay.
I don't know what it means.
So think of love as recognizing in another the same thing that you've recognized in yourself in terms of who and what you are. So when you look at someone whom you claim to love, a parent, a child, a sibling, a friend, whatever it happens to be, what is it that makes that experience or that relationship love? What is it that makes it love-based? Why do you claim to love one person and not another? Not simply because that person caters to your interests. If it's genuine connection, but what is that connection?
Unselfish.
Unselfish? Well, that's how it expresses as action, as unselfish actions. But this is the essence of it. It's a sense of non-difference. When you look at the other person, then we use the pronoun we. What does that mean? It means I'm referring to a single entity, which happens to have two separate components. My hand is a single entity with 5 separate components. I use the word hand. When I say we, I'm talking about a single entity that has 2 components, me and you. We are happy. We are in California. We are men. We are humans. We are conscious creatures. Where are we the same? It's that recognition of sameness. And it's felt. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of sameness. When you get that feeling of sameness, you can't harm. You can't harm yourself because because you are yourself. When you see others as part of yourself, there's no fear. There's no possibility or intent to harm, to extract from without taking their needs into consideration. You bring up a really good point. It's a great question that you ask, because to come back to another poem, there's one that we often get quoted, and he says, he's talking about friendship first, and then he goes on and says, and love is still an emptier sound, the modern fair one's jest, on earth unseen or only found to warm the turtle's nest. He's saying, Oliver Goldsmith, love is unseen. It's not here. It doesn't exist here. We don't really know what it is. What we tend to call love is that preferential emotional attachment because the person caters to some demand that I have. And when they stop catering, it turns either into indifference or negative emotion. Can you conceive of someone harming you in the most atrocious of ways, and it doesn't do a single thing to change your sense of oneness with them? It's that, what's the sonnet? Is it 23? Love is not love, which is tempest tossed. It's Shakespeare. I can't remember which one it is. He talks about this. If it can be tossed by the tempest, it's not love. It doesn't change. I claim to love my wife. I come home, find her in bed with another man. If my love remains, then it was love. If my love stops, it wasn't love. It was a preferential attachment while I'm getting my needs catered to, which is fine. We're not condemning that. We're just saying understand it for what it is and don't presume it's something that it's not. So we apply it through self-reflection and personal interaction. So what this means is that love is an intellectual phenomenon. Yes, love is a feeling. It's an emotion that you feel in the mind, but it's sponsored or initiated by the intellect. It's a recognition of sameness. There's this quote here, which I believe is sort of Middle Eastern in origin. I against my brother, I and my brother against my cousin, I and my brother and my cousin against the world. So I'm taking and sort of changing the perspective on this for a little while. When I only identify with myself, my brother becomes an enemy. Now I identify with my brother, there's that love, there's that oneness, there's that sameness, which means that his interests are my interests, and so I will fight with him against my cousin. Because me and my brother share the same parentage. Me and my cousins share the same grandparentage. So now there's oneness. Now I'll fight with my cousin against the world. Me and the world against... There's nothing left, is there? If you can identify with the entire world, who are you against now? Who are you fighting against? There's nothing left. So this is the idea of widening our circle of identification from brother to cousin to etc. all the way out.
Well, I think I learned it from you, but I told the faculty on the last day of class, or last day we had, to think about this idea. If you can't love everyone, you probably can't love anyone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Love is universal. Love is not preferential. That's the whole point of it. It's not egocentric. If I say I love you because, you should stop listening after the word because. It doesn't matter who and what you are. If I only love you because of your nice accent, it's not love. If I love you without reason, So this is the idea. It becomes universal. It's not because a preferential personal demand is being satisfied. And so when you have genuine love for one, it's impossible. You have it for everybody. So the self-reflection process, again, this is the intellect. Where are we the same? Now, this is not just something that you do 5 minutes before going into a meeting. Yeah, you can do this 5 minutes before going into a meeting as a way of reminding yourself. But this sort of self-reflection, we talk about it, it's something that needs to occur over a prolonged period of time. Because the mind is recalcitrant. It's not going to want to accept some of the ideas that your intellect recognizes are good for it. Right? Child doesn't want to eat its broccoli. Mind doesn't want to love everybody. Because it has its own personal attachments. And so it's a gradual process of educating the mind, where are we the same? Right? Me and that guy, we're the same at the level of gender, not at the level of nationality. We're the same at the level of our species. So there's all these different ways that we can start to understand the sameness. One of the ways that we can understand this is by looking at everything that you have ever tried to accomplish in your life. Everything you've ever done is for what? Why have you ever done anything? And me, and everybody else. Satisfaction, a sense of well-being, a sense of peace, happiness, whatever word you want to use. If that's the reason why I have always done everything, then that's probably the reason you have also done everything. When I recognize in you that everything that you are doing is just to assuage that sense of incompleteness, is to just try and be a happy human being, when I recognize that in you and me together, then I recognize that we are non-different. You're just trying to make yourself happy, same as I am. When you recognize yourself as a conscious being searching for well-being and properly identify with that, then you can't stop yourself from identifying that in others. Again, it starts as an intellectual concept, it bleeds down into the heart. For example, you can say, I'm an American. If you say that and you're genuine, what it means is that you identify with every person under the umbrella of America. But if I say I'm an American, but I don't like you because of your politics or because of your race or your gender or anything else, then when I say I'm an American, it's just lip service. It's not true. When I say American, I mean I'm an American according to my definition of it. But everyone else who actually is an American, if I cut you out of my love, then the statement I am an American is false. It's a lie. Because to say I'm an American means I identify with all other Americans. And if I don't identify with that particular American because of her politics, then I don't love.